the hard thing for me here is this is right at the front of the building. This is right on the street. Is anything else on the street like this with a sort of a 3-foot brick before you start getting to the porch columns? Or was this just something they kind of made up because they thought it might look cool? Do you know?
I didn't see anything else around it that has that.
This is a unique house. There's not any house like this.
Yeah, I used to actually be a neighbor of this property. I lived at Emmanuel Lutheran Church. And this is very different from things that are around it.
I can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I used to live at Emmanuel Lutheran Church, and this
Okay.
is there is nothing like this
Okay.
around that area.
This is not uncommon with houses of that area to have a brick column in the front.
Yeah. I guess, do you think they realized by making this change it was no longer a replacement in kind?
I don't think that thought even come to mind.
Yeah, all right.
I know they realized if it was gonna come to this, they sure wouldn't, heck wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, us too. So what is the topping here? Concrete, bluestone?
Bluestone. We tried to keep it in period of, to sympathetic with the building.
Right. So what era were you gunning for? Give me a year spread or a building type for me.
Late 1800s.
I'm gonna need to review the street file and talk to the building department about exactly what happened here and how we got to this point. I would be comfortable with you making any determination with regard to the application. I mean, the work was done. There's some dispute as to whether or not a building permit was necessary, whether the building permit was, whether the building department, informed the applicant they didn't need one. And before you even go down the path of requiring the property owner to potentially expend significant resources to change work that's already been done, I need to see what's in the street file.
Are you asking us to table
Yes.
this?
Yes.
If we table it, does it stop the homeowner from being able to finish this?
Absolutely.
There's a stop work order.
There's a stop work order in effect. It's not going to get lifted until there's some resolution here.
All right, we have a request to table from council. And does anyone have any questions of council as to why they think it's important? Or are you comfortable with the explanation so far? All right, then I will move that we table the application for 18 Livingston Street and carry it over to our July meeting. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. And so we should let you know it's the first Thursday.
Oh, those are already submitted. Those are all already submitted? I don't need them.
So we can hang on to those. Thank you kindly, Brian.
Yeah.
All right, next, 97 Broadway. Evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm glad you have the drawings, everything's been set. That should suffice.
Everyone know where we're talking here? For 97 Broadway, this is the Ask building.
I think I have enough for everybody here.
That's kindness, thank you.
You probably have everything for you. I know, 4 of you were at the table last year. Hi again. Hello.
Okay, Brad, you're up.
I was standing last night for HAC and it seemed to work well, so it's okay.
Projecting's good, go for it.
All right. So, Ask has been, as everyone knows, a well-established art group down the Rondell for a number of years, a couple of decades.
2005.
2005. And they've been incrementally making improvements to the interior of the building, and including a beautiful theater on the second level. They have several gallery spaces on the ground level, and a facade that is faces Broadway and it's in a historic district, Rondell overlay. So, Ask requested, brought Chopin Architecture in to assist them with improvements and updating the facade for aesthetic, practical, compliance, ADA accessibility, compliance, and functional purposes. The windows are old, single pane windows that are currently, Richard has worked hard to make them as energy efficient as possible with interior storm sashes. And the time seems to be right to upgrade those windows and doors to be more energy efficient and new again, but also to keep the look of the double hung windows at the second level, the doors at the ground level, arch top windows, and with an aluminum clad window that's built to last. So that's the idea here. And last night we reviewed all aspects of the proposal. And one thing you see on here, oops, sorry, these colors were just a little bit off because they're from a printer, and printers do that. So I brought the actual swatches. They're kind of small, but for reference I'll pass them around. The one major color of the doors and windows, the frames and the sashes, the muntins, is this blue color. So that shows up in the drawings and is fairly. You can see it's pretty off from the printer. So I think this tells the story better. The colors were inspired by the Ask historic signage colors, but not exact. They're taking a cue from that. So we have those colors as, the rendering shows it. So essentially, this blue is at the windows and doors. And what I also commented on last night, this is a little bit of a little deceiving here. It's supposed to be a painted wood brick member. It's not the brick. That's the computer not doing what it's supposed to do. And so that would also be a blue. So you'd see more of a solid color here in the 2 and 3 gang double hung windows of 6/1 light windows. So one task was to upgrade the windows and doors, and part of that also was to address the non-compliance of handicapped accessibility. So what we did there was use that as an opportunity to recenter the entrance so that there's a new main entrance. Right now, this door, this is really acts as a window and is not operated much, if ever.
Yeah, it's
It's kind of just
screwed shut.
there, yeah. So that would be a new door, would have new sidelights, new transom, a whole new assembly. And the new ADA entrance would be where the present entrance is. Right now, you have to step up to get into that door. So what we're proposing is to have a long, flat entry walk that is expanded into and encroaching into the sidewalk. So as we explained last night, that's going to require going to the ZBA for their variance. So that's contingent on other approvals and review. So we now have this flat zone that's also defined with an edge of a planter box, which would be very narrow, about a foot wide, and could have some indigenous plants put into it. So along with the colors, which would be painted as well up on the top, there would be an accent, which is kind of a goldish color, and a couple other colors.
So that would be this accent stripe
Yes,
here?
exactly, yeah, it'd be all three colors, with one, the narrow portion of this feature being the gold color. Otherwise, they're this kind of I'm not sure what you call this color, but it's a purple color, we'll call it. That would be picked up there. So those are the paint colors, and this is also a little off because this is a model brick. If you look at the cover of that sheet, it shows about a 3 or 4 tone mix of brick, which we find is quite attractive. And so to look at that along with the colors, and to complement that, those brighter colors, which are saying this is an arts facility, this is arts happen here.
You're gonna clean the brick, right?
Yeah.
How much lighter do you think the brick is gonna get once it's power washed?
Not much. It's really this coloration is really down low, especially to the downward side of the lower side of the facade.
It's up here at the corners of the main door. It's just hard to tell. Is it? There's some much lighter sections of it. Do you think it's going to go there, or sort of?
Well, it's still the brick color is through the brick.
Yeah.
So it may lighten it very slightly, but it'll
It's not going to be
be
significant.
cleaner for sure.
Right. But once it's cleaned,
Yeah.
it's
Once
not
the
gonna
sediment
look
will be
dramatically different.
Right, it'll be carefully cleaned using the proper procedure.
Right, but the sort of sprinkled in black bricks are intentional, that's the color of those
Right.
bricks. So, that will pretty much stay as is.
So the other thing that we're proposing to introduce is a new material, which would be complementary to that model brick facade. And that's a metal material that would be comprised of the planter box along the edge of the new proposed walk, the pilasters on either side, which are just a basic concrete flat pilaster, and those would have some openings in it to allow for announcements and events and calendars to be slid in behind and illuminated with a LED strip light that's behind and just kind of washing those boxes. So there'd be 3 on each side, and similarly up above. And this is where we get into a little more, like a 2-option proposal. Right now in this rendering, you see an ask sign using their branding identity signage. We're also thinking about as an option to have a video screen operating, much like a marquee would for a theater. So those are two things we're talking about, and we reviewed that last night.
Okay, a video screen, when you say marquee, I am imagining like triangular jutting out from the building. What
Yeah.
are we talking about?
No, this would be more flat, and this sheet, shows the one proposed, manufacturing product. This would be a series of 3 screens, butted up against each other. They're about 4 inches deep, so they would be mounted directly on the brick in places where the current ironwork is now. And then that would be surrounded with a beveled edge metal frame. And this is the material. It's a aluminum material. Kevin, you saw it. You didn't see this.
Yeah, I saw it.
That would be the planter box, the pilasters, and the surround for the siding or the screen. Now, between the front entrance, the new proposed front entrance, and the sign or the screen above that would be a glass canopy, and this would be 4 feet wide and 8 feet in length. Very, very, very light, so it allows natural light to come down, but it also protects people coming in and out of the front door from the elements to some degree. Rain would come off of that and shed directly down onto the planter boxes, unless there's a high wind or something. But the idea would be that that's sort of, rejuvenating that and feeding that planter box, and then also keeping people dry as they come in.
Okay, so this is replacing the railing and just above the light colored stonework around it.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to read, and I apologize for that. There's some notes in there that talk about removing and reusing some materials, maybe salvaging them for future reuse, including that ironwork.
One of the concerns that was expressed at Heritage last night was that the video screen concept, if you look at the dimensions of the facade, is going to be way up there. It's not necessarily particularly looking at it through a glass canopy type structure. It's really going to be more visible to people like out on Garrison Drive as opposed to people on the sidewalk or in close proximity to the building.
Well, and to Hayes' point and what we discussed last night, it's not a traditional marquee that juts all the way out and
Right, yeah,
and
you
has
said that,
sides.
and I'm immediately.
Yeah, no, it's-
Doesn't have blinking
Yeah.
incandescent bulbs in it.
I'm using that term a little loosely, but the idea being that that there is a theater there, and that it could serve to have show a piece of artwork or an announcement of an upcoming event. Not moving images. I think that's not the intent here. It's really about having solid images that change every so often and can be programmed and fed from a computer in the office.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that is, if it's approved, if it's approved, does that mean that other buildings can do the same thing if they're historic, if they're administrative?
They would then have a precedent for it, and also, just in my time on the board, I have a couple of questions arising from some history here. One is, I recall a handicapped entrance being around the side. Is that being replaced? Was that never used?
That was studied in this, the process of this design. And because of the change in elevation from the sidewalk to the door, even though it's pretty far back, it would be a very extensive ramp and would consume almost
All of the
the interior space there, interstitial space between the storefront gallery and ask.
Okay, so that was an approval that was never built.
Well,
I don't think it was ever approved.
No.
Well, I recall reviewing it, this must be 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
And so and does this require a railing, or because it's not actually a ramp, but
There's a handrail, but it's a very, very low
Okay.
elevation.
I think the handrail is
The
only,
planter itself acts as a curb.
The planter's a curb, and I see a handrail on the platform in front of the door, but I'm wondering, is there a handrail
Yes.
the whole width?
Yes, there's a, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get a clear vision of that from this drawing.
Oh, well, it's supposed to be in here. There is one. that goes
Okay,
right
that's
across.
important for,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would have
I'm
kind of
sorry.
expected that. So that would be behind the plantings presumably, or?
Yes, behind the planting.
Okay, what material do you propose for
A metal
that?
pipe, painted metal pipe material. That would be a very neutral color.
Gray.
Puritan gray.
it comes close to matching the exterior entry on the alley side, which we put in to replace the old and unusable fire escape that was there. So that gray would reflect the gray that's on the
Around the
exterior
corner.
entry around the corner, yes.
Okay. The other bit of history is a controversy surrounding a interior illuminated sign for a church, if memory serves, Hoon Street. Not sure which congregation that was, but my recollection is that we had real trouble with the idea of flashing light and interior illumination in general with signage in a historic district. And that's kind of what you're proposing. It's a little different, but
You're referring to the screen.
yes. I understand the attraction on an arts building and how things have to change, but it was a real problem with the church and the neighborhood. I would be reluctant, and this is a different application on a more commercial area.
Well,
rather
the
than-
church was also in a completely residential neighborhood, and the sign
Right.
was pointing directly at a row of residences.
Yes, so that is a difference here, but there is some precedent against interior illuminated signs in both the Rondout District and in the Stockade District. We have tended away from blinking lights on a sign with an interior illumination. More typically, we're asking a lot of folks to do exterior illumination onto a sign. So I want to throw that out just to give you a sense of what's been approved and turned down in other applications.
Well, and I have a question too for you guys. If I mean, you have two versions. One's the sign and one's the, do you have a preference? I mean, are you fighting for this illuminated,
Well,
or do you really care?
We brought both because we obviously realized that in a historic district that is, a controversial issue. We would, in terms of the screen, the opinion of the 400 person membership, I think is divided as we noticed at the membership meeting. So we wanted to bring this to the Historic Commission and, just throw it out there and see what the commission would say about it. But there's a very good reason why we brought two suggestions, because we wanted to give people the idea that there are different ways to go about this, and we're not locked into any one thing.
And there is a practical, it's not a screen for a screen's sake, but it's in terms of ease of use and expediency to change out the images for shows instead of having the printing banners and constantly putting out banners. There's certain labor-intensive aspect to that. The thought was that this would make things a little more streamlined in terms of announcing shows. And I think we had an internal conversation about how would this be used, and we think that it would need some pretty clear restrictions on how it's used. And for instance, no moving images, no rapidly changing images. That it would be a kind of a solid presentation, kept up there for a minimum amount of time at a time, and also turned off at a certain hour as well. It wouldn't be going all night. So there are a lot of things, and I know this is very kind of new
And
territory.
this is, yeah, these are the sorts of things that have not really been thought through. It's, especially within a historic district. From my experience, I mean, I remember a huge battle with the Old Kingston Teegarden, if anyone else remembers that. We had to force him the owner wanted a yellow and green blinking light sign, interior illumination. We finally reached the compromise that he'd turn off the lights and just leave it in the window, which we lived with for 15 years. This is not that kind of sign.
Mm-hmm.
You're describing something different, and we've never approached this either with the church, which was constantly changing, as I recall. What you're describing is something different, so we would have to be crafting
Yeah.
a regimen for our historic district, in essence, for a new type of sign that never existed anywhere near the time that these were.
Right, I think this idea is to bring the idea of an arts organization out onto the street and to project that image, to project that sort of, mood and feeling of an art gallery onto the street. As a matter of fact, I think, that the technology would allow you to, say, take a work from the exhibition and put it out there so that it could be displayed to the public. It's a very flexible kind of thing. So for an arts organization, I think it's a very attractive thing to think about, and that's why we're asking you to think about it. And, but that's also why we're saying that, this is one idea. There are other things that can be done above that glass canopy. We just need to get some kind of an approval for what it is that, we want to do, but we want to take our time about it and make sure that there's a solution that is acceptable to the historic district and the whole milieu there, but would also allow the Art Society to project itself out into the street as something a little bit different in this area.
The other thing that comes to my mind and would be less built into the structure, perhaps, would be literally projections. Have you guys considered that as a means of advertisement?
Or just with regard to the digital sign, brightness is going to be a huge factor. And if the display's not that bright, it's going to be completely ineffective during the day.
In the sunlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Which
could
is
be
which is a large portion of.
chunk of the time,
Yeah.
Although many of the things going on at an arts organization do tend to be evening things, performances. People tend to come there for the openings, which are 5 to 8 p.m. and so forth. But yeah, it's something to think about.
And of course, the brighter the display too, the less color accurate things will be. So if you have ideas of displaying images, it's going to be kind of complex.
Mhm.
That's where
From
Brent
my
comes in.
experience with
Yeah, right.
displays,
There we go.
They have a crack.
I am like
IT.
a digital guru
Oh, you are.
stuff.
Well, this
A
is
little bit about displays.
in the spirit of art making and presentation, it is, pushing the envelope. So,
And will require a lot of sort of new thinking from us and from what the code would actually push us toward and what our precedent would ask. I mean, it's a different application of an entirely new material, entirely new technology, but it might be able to be done in a way that's fitting, and I honestly have not given it much thought until tonight.
if I could just, propose something that I thought was a pretty good solution that we came to last night, where the AJC came to, is, it is an important component of what's being proposed here. But the action taken last night was in order to allow this project to move forward, because Richard has been a patient man over the years, and we're trying to
I've known it a long time. It's always been.
So they essentially, gave everything else sort of a green light, of course pending the zoning board review and approval of the encroachment and so forth, and kind of held off on the sign. So that's one, and that's one way.
And that would allow for further
For
discussion,
review.
maybe further refinement.
Because we don't want to rush the
talk about.
process at all.
Okay, thank you for that, because for me that is the most sort of new and intriguing aspect of what you're proposing. The colors, purple's a little out of the ordinary for the time, but it's not jarring. And also, if you look around, Victorians loved purple.
And if I could just add to that, this is a very bricky masonry building, so the color portions are truly end up being accents.
Yeah, agreed. So if we put so what happened last night with the glass covering of the doorway?
We approved that. We approved the design with the exception, the design with the exception of the signage.
Right.
Okay.
Which wasn't rejected, it was just kind of
Yeah, we
Table.
TBD, come back to
Right.
us and we'll discuss
Yeah,
it.
For further discussion.
Honestly, that will require quite a bit more discussion in trying to envision how it might be limited or designed, because it's new territory for us.
The glass canopy though on its own, we like that.
Okay, it's relatively inobtrusive. It doesn't, from my point of view, block a lot of the view of the structure. We're taking away the little balcony looking sort of accent.
Well, just in terms of the physical circumstance of that balcony, it's inserted into the masonry, and, steel plus masonry often tends to create deterioration, so
Over
that
time.
whereas it starts out as like maybe a 3/8 of an inch square piece of steel, at the bottom of it, it looks like a sharpened pencil as it goes into the,
Ooh, that's an ugly business.
so that's another
Yeah, that's a
issue that,
danger.
I think needs to be addressed one way or the other.
Right, and,
And while we're at it, I think if we could do something that, looks like the other alternative might be some kind of a sculptural element there that identifies the building as what it is. I think most people around Kingston, if you mention ask, pretty much know what that is, so it does enhance the branding of the building and the organization and the activities that are going on there. And I might mention also that this is with the rear center right next door, we've almost become kind of a little museum corner up here, so to identify what that is, I think is only a positive thing.
all right. Okay, so let's focus in on the materials for I keep thinking of it as a handicap ramp, but it's flat, so the handicapped access.
Well, it is a handicap, it's ADA.
Yeah, it will make the building much more compliant, as many of you
Right, I
know.
remember some of the troubles with the design up the side 8 years ago, but it was the best that had been proposed to date at that point.
And functionally, if I may, it will also enable larger, heavier artwork to be rolled in with ease, without any steps.
Right, and if, in terms of the encroachment, when we go to the zoning board in regards to that, you notice that you would approach this from the high side of the building. The sidewalk at that point is approximately 12 feet wide, and I think we're coming out, 5 or
4
6?
plus the 1 of the planter,
Of the
5
planter,
feet,
so
and we
5
end up
feet,
with about
basically.
another 6 foot 9 inches.
Right. If someone even mistakenly entered that at the high side, they can walk straight through, and at the lower side, there'll be, I believe, 4 steps that go down with handrails. So literally, if you weren't intending to go in the building, you could still walk across the thing and walk down the other side and proceed down the sidewalk. So it doesn't really, yes, it's an encroachment, but it doesn't, it's not a dead end. It doesn't force you to turn back and come around.
Does anyone have any comment about the cladding, the metal cladding? It's a new element. It's modeled so that in that respect, it mimics some of what's going on with the facade.
Right, it maintains the proportions. of
Right,
that,
and it's
those
a
pylons.
new material for this kind of application in the district. I haven't seen anything quite like it. But I don't find it particularly jarring because it's low in height and also is really trying to not exactly mimic, but draw from the treatment of the masonry, in my estimation. Anyone else have commentary or feelings about that?
And I don't know how, I described it a little bit more last night. This is actually an aluminum material, so it's lighter weight than an actual iron. This is just a treatment that's like a proprietary treatment on the aluminum, which mimics an oxidized iron finish. And the good part about that is that the aluminum is a more sustainable product than the Core-10 type of iron. It's lighter weight, and it won't stain. It won't stain the sidewalk or other elements on the facade. So it's a good all around. I mean, if you're going to go with the metal, this is a good choice, and a nice finish.
So it actually won't change then, it won't further like change color or
Right.
streak or anything like that? It's what you see is what you get.
Frozen in time. Yeah.
Uh,
And that's put on in small pieces or one
Oh,
large?
one large. It's cut from
One
sheets,
large
and
sheet.
and the
Okay.
rectangles, the cutouts, the letters of the ask logo are all laser cut, so nice edges, and then the edges themselves. This will be a thicker, sheet. This is just a sample. The edges themselves would have that iron, oxidized treatment applied. So there'd be very crisp corners, edges, and that LED lighting would be around and just illuminate the edges and kind of wash the enamel colors of the lettering and those announcement rectangles.
And what's your time frame on construction?
We'd like to see this done before the snow flies.
Okay.
Once we get, if we can get approvals on what it is that we're proposing to do, then, we're gonna proceed with contractors and materials and get this thing going.
We have to get to the ZBA, so that's we
Yeah.
haven't submitted to them yet. That would be the next stop. And of course, while things are being deliberated, we'd get to the building department as soon as we could after that.
Okay, so what we're looking at today are the changes in the window colors, the sash, the colors on the,
Door, so the door changing.
right.
Yeah, doors and windows will be changed out.
Right. So we're getting new doors and windows, we're getting this new access, the new anodized section on either side of the door. We're looking at the trim up above, and that's not exactly a cornice, but that's just a
The canopy.
canopy. I'm fumbling for the right architectural term. And let's see. And, I didn't even notice the planter down here.
We
That's
talked about that.
That's, well, the planter in front, that's
Yeah.
part of the application, that is
Right.
not. That's
This
for,
is
No,
a
that-
future idea?
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
just showing something that we'd like to do in the future, but it's not part of this application.
Okay.
Correct, yeah, just to give you a little heads up, what we want to do is really look at a kind of a master plan for the remaining parts of this building that we haven't quite touched yet, so we'd really like to, and that's why we brought Brad on board, and we'd like to go for some consistency, and again, to really make this building make a statement to the street, so that people know when they walk by, when they drive by, that this is an arts organization, there's something interesting and attractive going on here, and really invite people in to this building and eventually to some kind of a plaza in the alley that would make that. It's approximately the same square footage as the two little front rooms, the office and the middle room, so it's a significant footprint, and if we could eventually pave that, bring it up to level. We have two ADA compliant doors that will let people in from there, so it'll enhance the accessibility to the building in terms of people being able to go out there and enjoy that plaza. If they were in a walker or a wheelchair, those sills are already the low profile sills on those side doors. So we've kind of been working towards something, but we just wanted to hint at the idea of what we might eventually do
Right, that's
on the
right.
side.
The windows on the side, or any doors are gonna be replaced at the same time.
Actually, the windows upstairs are already newer windows.
Yeah, we're not gonna replace those.
On the side.
Correct.
So they will stay as is. All right.
But they're gonna be, it's gonna be basically the same 6/1 or whatever that you have on the side.
Correct.
And they're wood windows?
These will be aluminum clad. This will be that custom color that'll be baked into the aluminum. The interior will be a primed and painted finish. Wood. And the aluminum clad is used on many historic applications.
Yeah.
This be like a Marvin?
This is the,
One catalog we're looking
yeah,
at.
that's one, we're not married to that company, it's just one that we're looking at. But it would be, have
On that order, yeah.
historic accuracy with the,
That's the one we looked at
simulated
last
divided
night.
lights.
The one from Ken.
Same one from last year.
Yeah, like La Page or something like
Or
that, right?
page, yeah.
Yeah, I recall.
Yeah, the idea is to make this building last for another 100 years or so.
That is one of the joys of working on this commission. You get to think in decades.
Or more.
That's true. Centuries do come into play here. All right. Do folks have any further questions for the applicant?
Just the colors as we're kind of writing them up rather down. And here we have the Puritan gray, with
That's the metal handrail.
metal handrail.
Mhm.
Here's a little cheat sheet for you.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm missing.
Yay!
Okay. I'm sitting here for a half an hour.
There is a sheet in a large set that shows those
Okay.
as well,
All right.
and keys them in to the elevation.
Okay, that's it. Makes it easy. And here's the chips and there's the polish on the windows.
So am I right in seeing that the windows you're ordering are going to mimic the lines of the existing windows very
Yes.
closely?
Yes.
Okay.
As well as the doors. I mean, I believe the doors are what, 8 light?
Yeah, it's gonna be just.
Same deal.
Yeah, I mean,
Which actually will make it more accurate than the way it is. The police had replaced, so the current entry door, which is the right-hand door, right on the building, the police had replaced that with, some door from Home Depot or whatever that was blue. That's how the blue actually got on that upper, because
Oh, okay.
it was the police training academy, so we're gonna paint that sucker blue. But the doors that you see in this projection here are more like what the original doors were, which if you look at the center, that's what it was, right? And then the two side entrances with the arched windows. I don't know if the left-hand one was ever actually used as an entry, but it's supposed to mimic the other one. So we're really going back to the idea of having a much more open and again inviting kind of facade, which is what the original one was.
I think the doors and the windows actually are a big improvement, what you're proposing.
That's what we're-
Particularly the current main entrance is now gonna be the handicap entrance, is much better than the way you have it proposed.
Well, right, and I think we're going back to what the building must have been in its, 1925 incarnation. Clearly, if you look at it, those pilasters go down and then there's about, this much room down to the sidewalk. There must have been steps there, there must have been something, right? And I'm sure that center entrance was not put in and then just kind of abandoned. I'm sure that was the entrance to the building at some point. So I think we're returning to the original architectural concept.
One quick question on the blue. That one said, had a different, well, this is 720 and that was what, coat of arms?
763.
763. Do we know which one? Or
So here we go.
Is this accurate?
No, I think that was an option. So there you go.
Oh, all right. Oh, okay.
I just
Okay,
wanted, I
that's the
just
number that
grabbed
was
those
missing.
colors in this envelope
Yeah.
and,
Okay, number one was the one that was missing.
Yeah,
I added
yeah.
this, and this might
Yeah.
have been a duplicate number 3. Okay.
and maybe we need this one too.
Oh,
We want to just confirm that they're the same ones that are in the big set.
on there.
There might be a couple of options mixed in there, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think that,
Yeah.
it's just if we're,
It's not there anymore.
yeah, if we're doing an approval, it
Yeah.
has to sort of be,
Sure.
right.
No, it's the very ones that are on one of the sheets in the large
Yeah,
set. They are,
except for the
that's
coat of
accurate.
arms, you're not using the coat of arms, you're using the, you are using the coat of arms?
I think we are.
Sign the sheet with the
It's-
colors on it.
It's, all of these are the same. It's these 4 that are on here. These are all
I think we're deeper.
There we go.
Here we go,
Maybe.
Coat of arms,
coat of arms.
763.
Okay, it's.
French horn, coat of arms,
Okay, I had the other one, coat of arms.
curtain ray, and Cupid's dart. That Cupid's dart is, well, that would be this one.
Yeah, that one we're fine on, it was the coat of arms versus.
Yeah. So the big set is the proper reference.
Yeah.
Make sure that's the, that.
That's
the,
this.
yeah.
That's the,
Yeah.
right, that's the
The
metal.
aluminum.
Mhm. Important flash.
Like it.
I think it's an elegant solution to all this.
Maybe.
Putting that, the handicap ramp, that's a nice way to do it. It's hidden and it doesn't detract from the building.
Right,
And
and
the metal.
it kind of blends things
Tries to
together, so
tuck
yeah,
in
that's,
there.
we discussed that in our committee, if you remember, that going across from the center entrance and extending that to that right-hand entrance is a nice way of blending that all together.
And just to be sure, you're not painting the brick, or
No.
the brick is just.
No,
The brick is gonna be
it's
cleaned.
It's gonna be cleaned, yeah.
And will you
I don't
mention,
understand.
do you think you're gonna repoint it?
No, the facade is in pretty good shape. There needs to be some pointing on the alley side.
Okay.
But that's like
A
a,
little rougher.
yeah, that's a, what do you call it, like a decorative cement block. It has a little
Yeah.
profile on the outside. But
Does
yeah,
that need to be painted? Is that,
it needs to be pointed.
oh, I'm sorry, I misheard.
It's got some serious cracks.
Okay.
That could just be a simple repair work right now, and then, the future.
The idea of the plaza.
Like an atrium type of a treatment, the sculpture garden would be in the future.
All right, so it seems to me that you're asking for approval on the canopy, the entryway, the windows, the painting.
And the doors.
And the doors and windows are perhaps the single largest
Mhm.
element of change.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, even though I agree, I'm grateful that you're carrying the arch lines into the new. I'm noticing a double arch in what we have here and a single arch there. What is the plan for the arch windows?
Those would be replaced.
They're to be replaced, is the design going to shift? Because that's what I'm seeing here. Here's the photo with the double arch.
Double arch, I'm not following.
Okay, let me,
Windows, maybe.
here, let me make this. You see how we have the key and then there's 2 lines of arch? You see what I'm saying? 2 panes, you have a single.
It'll be exactly, that's a kind of a limitation, but this will be generating, the window manufacturer will generate shop drawings that will be approved, but they will be exactly
Okay.
Right, the intent is to maintain the
We're not
lines of
changing
those half-round
Right, right.
windows.
All
Correct.
right, good, I'm happy to see that. I
Yeah.
think that that's a good way to go.
Yes.
That's a significant detail, yeah, no, that should be retained,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, that's the one remaining detail that popped out at me. All right. So, I'm going to suggest that I'm going to move that we table discussion of the sign above the central entrance for another day. And I would ask for a second on that.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I'll make a motion to declare this a type 2 action under seeker.
I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Now the larger question. Does everyone have a solid notion of what we would be approving tonight? Or do we need to review this before we go through the formality of a
I
motion?
think we should, I'm like, still, I just got done with the paint chips.
That's why you've been so quiet.
He is meticulous. I am very grateful for that. As I see it, what we are discussing, the largest issue is the replacement of all the windows and the doors of the facade.
Correct.
With a new aluminum. I'm sorry, Sister Ellen, you are going to have to catch me later. They're aluminum faced,
Aluminum clad
aluminum
exterior.
clad
Wood interior.
with the color already embedded in
Right, baked into the,
aluminum.
Mhm.
Okay, and I'm trusting that Kevin has the details on the color.
Windows.
as long as they're taken off of that sheet.
Right.
He's got it.
Off the big plan. Those 5 colors are it,
The 4 colors and the.
and the steel.
That's the windows.
Coat of arms.
Coat of arms. No, coat of arms over the
Yeah,
doors,
Benjamin
right?
Moore, number 7630.
Windows over the door. The other ones.
These are out.
The second largest change will be the installation of the glass canopy over the central, and how is
Windows
that?
and the doors.
Yes.
Windows
Right.
and the doors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah, so
It's all
doors
the
somewhere.
same.
Yeah, and the trim in between the windows upstairs at the second level.
Right.
Yeah.
That would
The
be this.
top.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's a repair.
A quick question on that, I don't have a good sense of depth of how large that extends out from the building and
4
how it's
feet.
anchored into the building.
4 feet.
Oh,
It's,
there's
How is it anchored into the building?
they're metal, they're like a thick metal bracket. And it's bolted into the
We
building.
don't need it.
There'll be blocking in behind. And this is designed to, be strong enough for this zone's,
Snow
snow
load?
load, yeah.
Oh, so you're not going to have any diagonal element at all?
No, it's, that's correct. It's-
Okay, so that's just a shadow line? you
That's
guys
a shadow, it's a very deep shadow line, so it's
Got it,
a little exaggerated.
okay.
And it wouldn't be that dark because it's glass.
One hopes. Unless there's lots of snow on it.
Yeah, right.
French windows, where?
All right, does everyone have a clear notion of that, of what we're talking about there?
That's another signage cover.
And I should note that metal will be painted, I'm sorry, that metal, those brackets will be painted the same as the metal handrail, below.
The
The
gray.
gray.
Yes.
The Puritan gray.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So,
You're using French horn just in the S? Is there any other application for it?
well, we're holding the signage.
Right,
right.
I just want to know if there's any use of this besides
Up
the
above,
sign.
the architrave
Oh, right,
runs
yeah,
across.
that
Yeah.
is larger, bigger.
Yeah, just as an accent.
Right.
So we have this and the Cupid
Yes.
store, okay,
Okay.
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 The next largest from the facade point of view is the repainting of the colored strip, changing it from blue to the green with the two accent colors. The,
It's gonna be this color.
right.
Well, it's gonna be three colors. It's gonna be
That'll
that,
be,
majority.
this
and
will be
the,
the
the-
majority, the coat
the
of arms,
purple.
and then you're gonna
Yeah.
have that and that as the banding,
yes,
correct?
exactly.
Okay. Lastly, and in some ways most importantly, is the handicapped access with the aluminum cladding and the aluminum cladding
And
beside
that'll
the
be-
door, and that's,
That'll be this Corton flat sheet iron.
and and with that comes a handrail and planter
And that's gonna be
boxes.
the Puritan gray.
Okay,
And that will be also contingent on
Right.
zoning board of appeals.
okay, so we'll have to, that portion of it is the only one that is contingent. So the rest of it, you just need from us, no matter what, the idea of the
Correct.
handicapped access is contingent upon ZBA approval.
The handicap will just be on where the existing entrance is. The new entrance will have steps and will not be ADA.
Right, but then you'll be, because it's a throughway, you can walk straight across and down the steps or up the steps.
Okay,
Yeah, it's all the same level,
okay.
which will essentially be no more than a half an inch different from
So it's
the
different.
floor.
Yeah, this will go right across.
Yeah.
It picks up the height at the corner of the building, which is exactly the height of that first door, and continues on at that.
That was my understanding, but then when I saw this, I was like, wait, this is a.
Yeah, there's no actual slope, except, you know, an eighth of an inch per foot away from the building, so that rain
So it
sheds
drains.
off.
Mhm.
What?
Okay, I think that's everything. Is there anything important that I missed? All right,
Did you mention the planter as part of that?
all right. So I think we all have a decent notion of what's been requested of us. I will entertain a motion to approve.
Well, can we,
Look,
why don't we have, can Kevin just reads us a draft
Oh,
motion? Then we can adjust it too without having to withdraw it, so, and then somebody can do it, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, all right,
Give
so
us a little more time.
yeah, no, we'll just see where it goes here, okay. We're gonna start with the building, according to writer William Rhodes, was a pre-existing structure renovated circa 1925 as the Jewish Community Center for 3 synagogues then located in Rondout, later passing to the city of Kingston, and since 2005 occupied by the Art Society of Kingston. That a new ADA compliant building entry and a new center entry will be constructed with a 4-foot wide flat landing with handrails to be painted gray. And I think we note the gray further down in the motion. With planters along the outside with a glass canopy above. Glass canopy?
Yes.
Correct.
Glass canopy?
Awning canopy.
Yeah, okay.
It sounds like you're putting it above it's above the door?
Yeah, above the entry. yeah.
Oh, and then it
It's
does.
the
it
center.
does-
The
well,
center entry.
okay.
Okay, that's where, yeah.
Center.
Center entry, okay. No signage, signage is out. LED strip lighting, is that in? Is it in?
And that's part
That's
of
in the
the
sign.
On the
Yeah,
car.
That's all signage.
It's all hidden and concealed behind.
Take it out.
Or was that for the
Relative to
planters, LED lighting?
Not the
Well,
planters, no.
How about, on the?
Yeah, just behind the rectangles on the pilasters, behind the openings of the.
Oh, okay, we have that later on,
Yeah.
let's get to that, right, so I'm gonna delete this. Hold it out and strike it in a second. That the features and details shall include A, new oxidized iron finish treated sheet aluminum cladding, Corton flat sheet iron 3/6